So Friday the 28th of February is a Pisces new moon, and this is going to be particularly important for two reasons. One is that it symbolizes the end of the astrological calendar. We will be starting a new year on March 20th, entering Aries season. And secondly, because we will be having a set of eclipses in March, and that's going to herald in the beginning of these set of eclipses in the axis of Virgo and Pisces for the rest of the year. So for these two reasons, this new moon is slightly different from other new moons in the year. And of course, it's all going to be dependent on your chart. So what we're going to be talking about today is very much generally speaking what this might symbolize. We also want to note that this new moon is at 9 degrees of Pisces. So if you have planets at 9 degrees, whether it's in Pisces or any other sign, those planets will also be activated in some way. Whatever those planets represent in your life will also be triggered. And interestingly enough, we also have the eclipse on the 29th of March in the sign of Aries, also at 9 degrees. So that 9 degrees is going to be particularly charged in the coming months. Now, the new moon on Friday will symbolize what are some of the themes that are coming up for the whole month ahead, which will also include the eclipse on the 14th of March. However, I will not go into great detail about what those specific eclipses necessarily represent in each rising sign. I will be speaking more generally about this month ahead. Some of those themes in the eclipses will be relevant as well. So some of those themes from the new moon will also be relevant for the eclipses. We want to make sure that you know your rising sign and what your ascendant sign is. So if you don't know that, please check the calculator, which I'll link as well. Put in your birth information, come back, check the timestamp. It is important that you use your rising sign because otherwise it's not going to make as much sense. And as always, this is also chart dependent, which I've already mentioned before, but I can't stress that enough because some people have some expectation that every new moon is going to be important or every full moon is going to be relevant for them. And that's simply not the case. We want to be as specific as possible. And lastly, this new moon specifically has some uneasy energies to it. Of course, Pisces is generally a sign that does symbol the ending of things, but not only that, we also have planets in just difficult signs in general. So Mercury and Jupiter are in a mutual reception, meaning that our communication might not be that great. The things that we're trying to say are not landing in the way that we would like them to be. So let's start with all the signs coming up. And of course, if you have any questions, you know where to find me. Okay, so starting for Aries rising, this one is going to be happening in your deeper subconscious. So it's actually a really great time for contemplation. It's a great time for meditation. It really has a lot to do with how you are feeling at a spiritual level and engaging with your spiritual practices. Now, we've already been having quite a long period where Mars has been sort of stirring up something emotionally for you since already September of 2024. As it's been in Cancer on and off. And so we have a combination of both Mars in Cancer as well as a new moon in your 12th house, which can bring about some feelings of losses or really needing to let go of things. One way to use the energy, let's say, is to engage in writing. So writing is actually it's going to be a very profound thing for you this time. It's more automatic writing, more writing from your feelings, more sort of subconscious writing, as opposed to trying to write a manual. Anything that's illogical or anything that needs explanation does not have the same strength as the things that are coming from within in this particular new moon. For Taurus, this one has to do with your bigger visions and your bigger aims in life. So there is a financial component at play, which I know is typical for Taurus, but this one is particularly relevant on this new moon. And you might have had some visions for yourself, and those visions don't seem to be able to take shape in the last couple of years. Like you really had to work very hard in order to realize those gains. Now, between May and September, you may find that those lifts, so keep on it with those long-term visions. And this new moon is really great for that kind of goal setting. And also, you might note that you could get some expenses around this time. So also be a little bit more prudent with the way that you spend money. It is not advisable to undergo any type of makeover or some type of aesthetic procedure and anything like that around this new moon period. I do not believe that you'll be happy with the results. So try and wait until after if you can. Okay, for Gemini, the question is, what is going on for your career this year? And there has been already a long period of trying to understand better what's happening for your career, what's happening for your work in the outer world, and that could have already been met with some obstacles. So this new moon will accentuate some of those themes. Maybe the things that you're trying to push forward aren't going as smoothly as you wish. Maybe the goals and ambitions that you've set have not been quite solidifying. Now, between May to September, you may have a lift in your career. So note that this is a really great time for planning and working towards the things that you need to in your career, letting go of the things that are not working out in terms of the work that you're trying to do. This new moon is also likely to cause a little bit of doubt around the direction that you're heading in and the work that you're doing. So just know that it's a phase, that these eclipses will definitely accentuate the things that are happening in your career, even if they're going to bring obstacles along the way. This is definitely the year where you're going to be focusing on that. So for Cancer, this is an important lunation, obviously, because the moon rules your entire chart. And so you'll be more sensitive to the different movements of the moon, whether that's a new moon or a full moon or an eclipse, especially if you were born on any of those lunations yourself. Now, the moon is packed in with all of these other planets, meaning that you yourself are kind of in between all of these different challenges, all of these different expectations, and you are reassessing at this time what you actually stand for. Like, is it all worth it? Is this actually what I'm here to do? There has been a period since September of 2024, where you've been working really hard and maybe overworked and maybe sort of overburdened. And so this new moon is sort of the pinnacle of what's happening here. Is it time to let go of some of these things? Is it time to get rid of the things that don't actually represent what I actually believe in, so that you can move forward? And the eclipses are going to continue to ask you this question. So now is a really good time to start asking yourself that before the eclipses officially arrive. So for Leo rising, this one is, I think, one of the heavier new moons. And I believe that for Leo rising, you've had quite a difficult period since already spring of 2023, where there has been a lot of transformative topics, a lot of having to deal with even this idea of your own mortality, themes of transformation, and a lot of maybe heavy subjects that have come into play. So hopefully by this period, you're already sort of starting to come out of that. But the eclipses are going to be highlighting some of those themes that have been happening in the last couple of years. For that reason, I believe that this new moon is something much more contemplative, much more internal, much more meditative. It's a time where you want to look after your mental and emotional health. Now, you may also have opportunities to meet with different groups or to kind of engage with a wider audience at this time. So that is also kind of in the background. But as a general feeling, this is definitely a lot more internal. You may also need to be dealing with the financial matters. So whether that's estates, whether that's taxes, things where you share money with other people. This is going to be a theme that might come up in the next month, and which might also be accentuated as we move through these eclipses. Okay, for Virgo rising, this is important because it's affecting your relationships, and you may find that certain relationships are ending and it's time to sort of wrap up loose ends, and you're going towards these partners, but maybe these are not the partners that are right for you. So that's something to take into consideration as we move into the new moon and as we move into the month ahead. The eclipses will further emphasize this. You've already been having these themes in the last couple of years. So this is not new news, but definitely it might be accentuated. At the same time, you have a big transit happening for your career. So there's these two pillars that are really being that have been fluctuating. And you want to take note that whilst these things are happening in your partnership life, you also have opportunities in your career that you don't want to let go of. So learning to find that balance may be a little bit tricky during this period. Also looking after your health, because we also have eclipses in the sign of Virgo this year, is going to be one of the tasks at play. For Libra rising, this is all about being a taskmaster extraordinaire. So for many of you, you might just be feeling totally overwhelmed with what life has on your plate right now. And what's important to take note in this particular new moon is whether or not it aligns with what you stand for. So while you might be very busy, you also want to consider, like, does it represent what my true belief systems are? And that's the fine line that is going to be accentuated, because you will be busy, work will be busy, your life will be busy, and there'll be many demands on your plate. Now, we don't have that much stabilizing earth energy in the skies right now, and so it's a good time to also make sure you have your grounding practices and make sure that you have the things in order to stabilize your daily life. So for Scorpio rising, this is interesting because it's much more self-directed, meaning that it's all about this question of who am I as an artist? Who am I as a creator? If I distill all of the essence of myself, what is it that represents me? And in this period, because it's a new moon, we're trying to get rid of things. So you'll want to consider, do I have too many interests? Am I kind of involved in too many different kinds of things? So this is a time to pare those away. Do I need to further my education in order to refine the things that I'm actually passionate and interested in? And so you may enroll yourself in a course, you may decide that you need higher education, you may even need to take a trip in order to better your education and your knowledge. So just bearing in mind that this is not a good time for dating. That would be the only caveat that I would say about Scorpio rising. Better to wait after the new moon for that activity. So for Sagittarius rising, this is an interesting one because Jupiter rules your whole chart. Jupiter rules this new moon in Pisces. So it has a double importance for you. And the question is, where do you want to put your emotional roots down and where do you want to put your physical roots down? So we've already been lingering with this question for the last couple of years, either subtly or not so subtly, but you'll be finding that the new moon is really going to solidify these questions and bring that into focus. And also you might find that someone in your home needs you, someone like a parental figure or someone actually in your physical home might need your help at this time or might require your attention. Now, you might already be booked on a trip, you might be already involved with something else, so it's not that you necessarily will be physically at home, but for sure, the question of where home lies is going to be very powerful at this time. For Capricorn rising, life has felt like a bit of a battlefield lately because Mars has been in your 7th house of relationships, and that is going to create a lot of arguments. That's going to create some miscommunication or just feeling like people are kind of out to get you and not being very cooperative. And although Mars, and this has been happening since early September, Mars is finally out of the retrograde, but will continue to be in that place until mid-April. So you have that going on in the background. At the same time, this new moon is going to signal maybe some changes in your friendships. So these are people that you spend time with, they're close friends, but you kind of feel like maybe these are not the friends that are the right fit for me any longer. So at this time, you may undergo some changes in that area. It is also a really wonderful time to pick up some new skills or to get rid of some things that you don't feel are useful for you. So perhaps you feel like you need to invest some time in a short course of some type or just get some skills sharpened in some fashion. And at the same time, let go of some bad mental habits. So if you have some habits that are affecting your mental health, this is a really great time to get rid of them. Okay, Aquarius rising, this one is about money. And it's a little bit difficult because generally speaking, for Aquarius rising, money is not something that's easily received unless you have planets that really accentuate that part of your life. And at the moment, we have a big focus on the responsibilities required to live in your life, to survive, and look after yourself and the people around you. So this new moon is going to symbolize the importance of that. It's also going to symbolize the importance of this theme going forward in the eclipses as well as this month ahead. We also have this idea of, are my creative visions, are the things that truly represent me being translated financially? So that's one of the main themes as well. It's not just money for money's sake, but how does it relate to my own creative vision and who I see myself as, if I see myself as an artist or if I see myself as a creator, and how does that translate to my finances and my bottom line and the responsibilities that I have in my life? Now, you have this ongoing transit as well, which can be liable to burnout. So be wary of your health, especially your gut health and your stomach health until about mid-April. So bearing that in mind, because Aquarius rising will tend to have a more fragile constitution. Okay, last but not least, we have Pisces rising. And this is of course especially important for you because we have the sun, the moon, Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, the North Node, all in the sign of Pisces, meaning that your first house, your body, the way that you go out and experience the world, all of these elements of life are being activated. So that could be themes with partnerships, that could be health, that could be home, children, you know, even your own ego death. So we have a mixture of themes that can come up for you at this time. And we've already been undergoing a process for Pisces rising of kind of reevaluating how you see your role in life. So this has been happening since spring of 2023, and the new moon is just really accentuating that. So take it easy. Try not to expect too much on the day of the new moon and the month ahead. And be aware that this is definitely a period where a lot of things can end, but also that this is a period of change for new beginnings, especially where partnerships are concerned. You'll start to see these themes be accentuated a lot more as we move into the eclipses, as we move into this next month ahead. So hopefully that was helpful for all of you. I look forward always to hearing your updates, and I'm wishing you a very peaceful new moon ahead.